Well, one thing that Spanish 1 really struggles with all year is conjugating verbs, and we recycle it on most assessments. So I have a group in my on-level Spanish 1 class that still is just really struggling to participate, and then everybody else is playing a game too, so it's not so singled out. So we did Battleship last time, but this time I did bingo. So I would say, for example, I visit or you travel, and see if they could select it on the bingo card, and then I was there to see if they picked the right one or not, and if they didn't, then I could have a little moment where we walked through, like, well, take off your ending, and now what, who am I saying? I'm saying I, that ends in this. But I just feel like that way, one, they're doing something, and two, it's not like they're singled out of the class because everybody else is playing. Bingo in a group, I select a leader, and so they're kind of running their own bingo. And then I identified that group based on the questions they missed on their unit test, but we know that conjugation will be on the semester exam too, so that's why I want to focus on it in small groups, because I know it's going to be recycled again in just a few weeks from now.
Okay.
Writing the summary and identifying key historical evidence related to the topic of that day. So they were doing some writing, and I had them get up and mingle, and they had to exchange ideas with at least a couple of classmates, and then return to their desk and add to their original summary or their original thoughts. And so I pulled out those for the 10% of my classes to examine them more closely. But I think the thing that I'm primarily wanting to do going forward is we're about to begin serious review for the AP exam. And one of the things that I typically do is I'll take a couple of time periods for each day, and all of our review activities and games will be centered around those time periods. And I'm thinking, because I've got all the data from our past exams, that maybe I want to have a shifting 10%, looking at who was it that struggled the most in these first two exams of the year, who was it that struggled the most on these exams. And so my small group that I pull aside as we're doing rotations and different activities will vary from one class to the next.
But for me, whenever I pull those kids out, we are now doing topic one-pagers, and those topic one-pagers, they have vocabulary on them, but on the back side, it's actually FRQ practice for the test. And for me, that's really the key of how well they understand the vocabulary, because then they're actually having to apply it to real-world concepts. And so being able to see that, what I do is, as they're working on the next one, I go through and I check with a couple kids, but I make sure that I hit by 10%, my lower performing ones, and kind of walk through the process of, hey, this is where we're falling a little short here, and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really the focus kind of was on EBQ for our AP Psych test. It's kind of where I was looking, and so it's like the second short answer portion of the test. And so using Class Companion as kind of where I was having students do work and then kind of looking through. My class is set up in tables, like groups, tables anyway, so it makes it easier to just like pop table to table. So it's necessarily like, it's the people mixed in who are totally fine, there's people who are struggling, and so I just kind of can like wander and check in. And I kind of, when we first talked about it, I looked and went through and was seeing some things that people in general were doing, which was a good thing that I could go back and just like to the class, like, hey, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're trying to format things specifically.
Kind of on the same topic as Lindsay, my kiddos are struggling with the conjugation, especially when they're reading and having to conjugate based on the subject pronoun. And so they took a quiz in the imperfect, and we had reviewed preterite and imperfect because we're gonna assign them a project coming up where they'll have to use both. And so they took the quiz, and then I noticed that we had several kiddos that didn't do as well with the conjugating part. So it was a great moment. I assigned task cards to the entire class. They worked in partners. It was in their individual time to work. And during that time, I pulled those kiddos that scored a certain grade, and then I brought them to the table, and I worked with them 2 to 3 at a time. Kind of worked the kiddos that had right around the same grade. I had their 6-packs in front of them, and we went one by one, and I had them tell me what the subject pronoun was, and then look at the different 6-packs. There was only 3 of them, and I think that's where they were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Like, it's right here, and it was like an aha moment. Some kids just jumped right in and was going ahead like, yeah, I know what I did, and they fixed it. But I had them talk it through with me.
Spanish 1, again, verb conjugation is, it's hard. So then we have our tables where they see, they have the pronouns, and then depending on the ending of the verb, what do I have to change, when I conjugate with each of the pronouns. So then they were struggling with the conjugation, and until I realized that the problem was that to identify the pronoun, that was the big problem. So it's easy when I say yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, ustedes. But when you change that for a name and you say Maria, blah, blah, blah. Oh, what pronoun is that? There we go.
So for what I have been doing lately, which I've been very happy with, was having them write their FRQs silently on their own, and then I would show them the exemplar answer, and then I would ask them, because what I found was when they would turn them in as an exit ticket, there were just a lot there. So I said, okay, I'm gonna have you grade it, but I want you to underline what you wrote down, or what you did correctly. And that was so helpful because I could see at a glance how much was underlined opposed to what's not. Doing was one-on-one with the feedback, verbal feedback. So a lot of times they want to retake, and it's the same population, or 10%, like we're speaking of. And so I was missing the component of a one-on-one. Now you verbally explain it to me, because in teacher school, that when a child can explain it, whether or not they understand it. And so before they, so once they did the retake, I then asked them certain questions, and I found that they could then reiterate the answer in their own little kid language. And I was like, oh, that's incredible. And so that actually encouraged me as a teacher, but it also, I could see their little smiles, and they felt kind of cool.
Students' heads. And so when we were practicing vocabulary or going through lessons and stuff like that, they were up front and close. So I had more of their attention, right? And then the students that were not struggling as much would be on the outside edge. And they think, well, if they're in the back, nobody's gonna call on me, right? So I had to bring those kids that were struggling to the front, closer to me, right? So when I brought them closer to me, it was easier to do the small little check-ins after we learn a concept and then question them about it, and they're able to demonstrate it, and then we move on a little bit more, and then we learn something new again. Then I ask the other side of the horseshoe, right? And then they're able to get it, and then I jump to the back because they thought they got out of it, right? So I jump to the back, and then that way they're not like, why is he just asking us, right? That small little assessment, it was in the form of a Google form, and it would play the video and then ask the question, and it was either multiple choice or fill in the blank. And I didn't get anybody that got lower than a 90. So their retention is a lot better. They're really getting